Eagles of Death Metal is actually not a heavy metal band.
It's a very rock and roll band, but like an old one, like in the 60s.
Julian Pierce has waited 6 months to see the American rock band.
I love this band. It's good music to dance, to have a good time with friends and drink a beer, and that's all.
On November 13th, Pierce and his friends are in the front row.
We were on the right side of the concert hall, very close from the stage actually. A lot of people came in after us.
Frank is in the rear of the hall that night.
Here you have a feeling that you are connected with the band because they are not so far from you. It was a good night, good ambience. The people were there, they were very excited.
We are now 20 minutes into the siege here in Paris. There have been explosions at the soccer stadium, gunfire at multiple cafes, dozens have been killed. But now comes the deadliest attack at a concert hall called the Bataclan. It's about 9:40 p.m. when 3 men are dropped off in front of the Bataclan.
They stand around for a bit and they send a message by SMS to Belgium. They then throw that Samsung phone in a trash bin.
They approach the entrance and open fire.
When we heard gunshots, explosions, at first I thought it was part of the show. It was fireworks or something dropped. And immediately I turned my head on the left and I've seen 3 men wearing black clothes and holding assault rifles.
The men move through the venue shouting Allah Akbar, Arabic for God is great. The terrified crowd scatters. Some people try to escape. Others hit the ground and play dead. The terrorists keep shooting.
While one was firing, the other was reloading, meaning that they could fire continuously. There's a lot of bloodshed fairly quickly.
I was with a friend at the moment, who was just next to me, and he said, someone is firing on us, stay low and everything, and say, you were hit. And I look at my leg and at my domain, there was blood pouring out of it because the bullet went straight through.
And I was on the floor with a dead body on me, and all the crowds tried to move towards the stage. So I had a lot of people trying to walk on me, walk on us.
You could smell the gunpowder, you could hear the terror of people screaming. I looked around once and I saw a dead man who had been shot, whose face was facing towards me. And after that, I said, no, I cannot look.
Concertgoers pour out of the venue, some injured and limping, others trying to help the badly wounded. One pregnant woman prepares to jump from a 3rd-story window, but is helped back inside. She later escapes through the ground floor. Inside, a rock concert gone quiet.
And it was silent at a point. Complete silence in the concert hall. I heard the terrorists reloading their guns, that particular sound, metallic sound, clack, clack.
He looks between bodies to see what's happening.
And I saw one man, very young, and he was walking over bodies and kicking bodies to see if they were still alive. And if the bodies responded, if the people responded, immediately he was shooting them in the head.
It was important not to move, not to flinch. So the whole duration, I had to stay calm. So I thought about my family, I thought about my friends. I didn't say their names, I just pictured their face and I said, I love you. And in that way, it felt okay to die.
Julian Pierce decides to make a run for it, dashing across the stage to a small room where he joins others trying to hide.
Then I immediately spoke to a girl. She was a member of the Bataclan staff, and she said to us quietly that the only escape was on the other side of the stage, on the left side. We were on the right side, so we were trapped in this room. We were trapped like rats.
Coming up, hours of fear and uncertainty.
Every time you heard something, you thought, maybe I'm next.
As the world learns of the siege on Paris,
Breaking news, Paris terror fear. Multiple people are reported killed in a shooting. There's also word of possible explosions outside the National Stadium.
inside the Bataclan theater, victims lie helpless.
The attackers, according to the eyewitnesses, seem to be enjoying themselves. They toy with some of these hostages. They say to some of them, "You should get up, it's okay, you can go." And as soon as they get up, they fire on them and they kill them.
Before elite police troops can get there, two local officers rush inside.
20 minutes after they first arrived at the Bataclan concert hall, there are two local police who got a call that something was going on, that there was violence inside. They needed to go there as quickly as possible.
Armed only with handguns, the two police officers enter the venue.
And when these two police first come in, they engage in a firefight with one of the hostage takers, Sami Amimour. They managed to kill him. As he falls to the ground and rolls on the floor, he blows himself up with his suicide vest.
I remember the terrorists blowing himself up, the sound of the explosion, you know. There's a ringing in the ears and everything.
You heard the guy explode his belt.
Yeah.
The officers are forced to retreat and wait for help. The attackers move to a more secure position deep inside the building.
At that point, the attackers, the two surviving hostage takers, take a dozen or so hostages into a corridor, an L-shaped corridor as described by eyewitnesses, where they barricade themselves.
Why were they taking hostages?
They took hostages to make sure that the police and the elite forces would come to them. They decided to remain with the hostages in order to kill police officers at the time.
The standoff at the Bataclan has lasted for almost 3 hours.
There's a situation unfolding at that Bataclan theater right now where an American rock band had been performing, but dozens of hostages are still inside.
Just after midnight, special forces launched their final strike.
The two remaining hostage takers blew themselves up as they were being shot to death by the commandos.
It was about 9:40 when the attackers went inside the Bataclan. The police didn't enter until 12:20. Why so long a period?
Because the intervention forces didn't know the place, they didn't know the number of attackers. It took a long time to determine all the parameters of the scene.
All remaining hostages in the Bataclan are rescued. Julian Pierce had already escaped through a side exit. Others, like Frank, are forced to lie still and wait for help.
I tried myself to crawl, but I couldn't. I was too shocked, I guess. It was just too painful. I tried to crawl, and I lost a lot of blood actually already, so it was very difficult. So I could not move.
Frank is carried to safety by a special forces officer. I met him 2 months later in the hospital, where he was still recovering.
What is the hardest part for you?
There are some whose life are destroyed, you know. That's the hardest part to think about, you know. I try not to think about it too much, about people who lost their lives there and people who will never recover.
130 people die across the city, including 90 inside the Bataclan. Nearly 700 more injured. It is the most violent night in France since World War II. But Parisians are determined not to lose the city that they and the world love.
It's imperative that we take this horrific story and learn from it to appreciate life.
I want to beat them.
You want to beat them?
Yeah.
And how do you beat them?
You beat them by still living in the same way of life you used to. By still living the good life. That's how you beat them.
Next, who are the attackers? How did they plan? And will they strike again?
Abdelhamid Abaoud and another man were planning a second wave of attacks.